Hello, and welcome to China Forum, the leading program for discussing trends and developments in Chinese culture, politics, economics, and social issues. My name is Grace Carroll, and I will be your moderator for this program. Today, we are glad to welcome a prolific author and scholar to our show. Dr. Chi Wang is the president of the U.S. China Policy Foundation, a nonpartisan, nonprofit, non-advocacy group that seeks to promote a greater understanding between American and Chinese policymakers, researchers, and government officials. Founded in 1995, the foundation seeks to promote mutual understanding and communication through programs like Policymakers Trips that bring congressional staffers to China, and programs like China Forum that highlight issues relevant to U.S. China relations. Dr. Wang has also been a professor at Georgetown University since 1969, specializing on contemporary China and U.S. China relations. Additionally, he has overseen the development of the Chinese collection at the Library of Congress for over 30 years, and has served as honorary consultant on U.S. China trade issues under the Carter and first Bush administrations. Professor Wang, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
As I just briefly touched on, you've had quite a prolific career here in Washington, D.C. So today I wanted to talk about your new book, A Compelling Journey from Peking to Washington. Firstly, congratulations on publishing your third book.
Thank you.
You were able to record your life story spanning 2 continents and over 5 decades into a very condensed, but very detailed and interesting volume. So let's start from the beginning. You were a child in mainland China when the Civil War broke out, and at the time, you were faced with a really tough decision of staying in a war-torn country with few prospects for your education or starting a new life in America and to be separated from your family. Can you describe the process that this took and what your state of mind was at that time?
Yeah, I think it is a very long story, but I make it very, very short and brief. And I was after I retired from the federal government, Library of Congress in about 7-8 years ago, and I talked to a lot of friends and also some Chinese leaders from both PRC and Taiwan, and also French in America, and they said you have a very interesting personal history. I said, well, I don't know about that, but I think that I certainly enjoy my lifetime since I was born in 1930s, and so this is what prompted me to write something about myself, because a lot of people ask me that, including the late Madame Chiang Kai-shek, and also the very well-known Chinese military general, Young Marshal Zhang Xueliang from Manchuria. He was under house arrest for more than 50 years in Taiwan. And these people become my old friends after they getting old. And this is what they tell you. You have an interesting background. Why don't you write something about it? And I said, well, I'm not a well-known person, just a academic and maybe a Library of Congress curator for Chinese collections. But they think that you should write something. So that's why I began to, after retired, began to write this small book. And I talked to myself, if I write something, I would not write 500, 600 pages. That's too long. I write about 200 pages. That's why I write very compact. I condense everything I remember. I grew up in China during the Sino-Japanese War from 1930s to 1945. And then from 1945 to 1949, the Chinese Civil War, I was in China too. And at the end of 1948, I decided for my future. Now, after I graduated from high school, what is my future? Study in China or go to for a foreign country? Because my 2 brothers, they both studied in the United States from 1939 to 1948 during World War II. They come back in 1948. They urged me, you should do the same thing, go to the United States to study. And my mother, very, very supportive of my idea to go to the United States. And because my 2 brothers one of them was at the draft during World War II as a U.S. Army officer. It was sent to India, Australia, and then Pacific, different islands, and then end up in Shanghai. So I was thinking maybe I could do the same thing, go to the United States to advance my education. And that's my primary mission and goal. Okay, and as a high school kid, I have no idea what I'm getting into. Say, I didn't have anything. I don't know anybody in the United States, and just take a chance. I went to first Taiwan for a couple of weeks, and I had to go to Hong Kong and go to Guangzhou. At that time, the national government foreign ministries in Guangzhou, I must get my passport. So I just go through all these procedures. So finally, I was lucky, able to get an airline ticket from Hong Kong, flew to different islands, Wake Island, Guam Island, and then Honolulu, and then end up in San Francisco. That was about 3 days, 3 nights flight. And I was young, teenage, very energetic. I was the only one in the airplane didn't get airsick. So I remember that this is a very good memory, a good. I enjoyed that journey. See,
it's quite an adventure.
From Hong Kong by myself. I've been here since 1950, so I'm long time in one DC.
Resident.
Right, yeah. So that's what, I think that's what I was able to work here, get a degree from the University of Maryland in major in agriculture.
Wow.
Because my father urged me, you must study agriculture because China is based on agriculture as an agriculture country. So I even though I was not that much interested in agriculture, but I was able to get a degree from University of Maryland.
Was this your undergraduate studies?
Undergrad, yeah. And I spent first 2 years studying English, and then I spent more than 4 years to study my bachelor degree. And then I got a job in the State Department.
What were you doing at the
I got a job, it just happened, I was at a Chinese restaurant. A gentleman said, "Are you Wang Chi?" I said, "Yes." Are you Mr. Stollenberger? He was the vice consul of American consulate in Beijing in 1946 to 1948. I like to go to the Chinese, American USIA information, US Information Office Agency. They have usually weekend showing movies, magazines. I usually go there for maybe watching movies, and so.
This is when you were living in China.
I was in high school.
Okay.
In Beijing, and I should tell something about my high school. The high school I went to was an American missionary high school. All my English teachers are Americans.
Okay.
They are native. They're American. They're American missionaries. So that's why I was able to meet this Mr. Stollenberger. He at that time he was the vice consul, and then he came back here in 1950. He became later on he became director Foreign Service Institute, FSI,
yes,
at the State Department. He said, "Well, we need somebody to teach Chinese." I said, "Well, I didn't look for a job." He said, "Well, I can offer a job." So he said, "Why don't you come over to see me at the State Department, my office?" So I said, "Oh, why not?" I went there to see him tomorrow, the next day, and I was interviewed by Mr. Stollenberger, and he passed away many years ago, and his colleague, Dr. Lee Smith, a linguist, and interviewed me. I said, "Well, you're hired." So that's my first kind of a job at the State Department.
Is that how you got interested in teaching as well?
Yeah, I think that's part because as a student in college, you have no chance to teach anywhere except
Sure.
but I was lucky. Mr. Stollenberger, he really liked me. He said, "I'll offer you a job, teaching Chinese language in the morning, in the afternoon, talk about China's culture and geography." I said, "I'm not a professor." He said, you can tell the American people what you know about Chinese geography. And so I just began my teaching career at State Department in 1956, August. and that's what later on I really getting interest. See, I can, even the class very small, 6, 7 junior foreign service officers. They're in language training and country training, China, and at that time there are no contact between U.S. and China. Only through newspapers to understand what is going on in China. The kind of Cold War years, and I was kind of I would say pretty lucky to get a job like that. Through that teaching experience, I met a number of future American Foreign Service officers, and this is part of later on making me interested in U.S. China relations. Okay.
So how did you transition from that? Did you go directly from teaching at FSI to studying at Georgetown and then teaching there?
Yeah, let me tell you, I think I mentioned that in my book. And after I got a job at FSI, and after 2.5 years, and there was a project, microfilm project, in the Library of Congress, which one professor who was a professor of Japanese history, a Chinese American, he was teaching Japanese history at Georgetown, Professor Zhang Yang. And he said, I'm going to have a microfilm project, microfilming the Japanese Army, Navy, Air Force archive from 1895 to 1945. It was quite large archival sources. And he said, I need somebody who knows a little bit Japanese and some Chinese, and why don't you work for me? I said, well, I'm still teaching at State Department, so I talked to Mr. Solomberg. He said, you should change this job. It just sounds like a great job, very interesting, and you should learn a lot about Japanese Chinese history. I said, well, I want to give it a try. So I talked to Professor Yang. I said, well, I'm happy to accept your offer. So I began to microfilm as supervisor for the project from early 57 to the end of 57, because the archival sources, so many documents, it was not going to finish in 1 year. It may take about 10 years to finish. By the time at the end, first year, the Japanese government wanted to have them return to Japan. So State Department cannot keep them anymore because this archive was brought back by General MacArthur.
Okay.
And so we have to return the archive back to Tokyo, and then we just finished our project. And that's why later on I met a number of Library of Congress managers. They offered me a job. They said, you want to work here? So after the microfilm project, they offered me a regular career job. I was hesitating, so I talked to Solomberg again. I said, Mr. Solomberg, and you think that I can move to Library of Congress because that's a career?
Yes, yeah.
And I was kind of a very lucky person. I always got the job looking for me. I never looked for jobs. Right. And when I was in college, so I talked to him. He said, well, fine, why not? I think this is still government. And so I decided to work for Library of Congress.
As the curator for the Chinese.
No, not at the beginning. As a very beginning level kind of a cataloging assistant. Okay. And began cataloging Chinese, Japanese, Korean books. Sure. And even though I was not majoring in library science, but they said, well, you should know Chinese.
You can learn.
Yeah. So that's why I started my library conquer. I thought I'm probably going to stay here 1 or 2 years, go back to the State Department. I really fall in love with Library of Congress.
Right.
Once you go there, you go to the book stack. I couldn't believe we have 300,000 volume Chinese books. I never seen that many Chinese books in my life, and I was so excited to see any kind of book you want is in the Library of Congress. Chinese book, Chinese literature, history, government policy, economy, and theater, drama, everything. I just couldn't believe that. Even ancient Chinese books, classical books, it just amazed me. And how could the American have so many Chinese books in the Library of Congress? And the senior people in Library of Congress said, we need young people like you, in your 20s, you should continue to work here, develop a Chinese collection. I said, I am not library science major, so I couldn't. You can try. And then it just happened. I really enjoyed what I was doing. I just stayed there for from 1958 until 2004.
It's a long
A long time.
career.
In the meantime, I said, I cannot be just a bachelor in agriculture. I got to get a degree to do with social science humanities. So my wife was study at Georgetown, international relations. She said, yes. I said, you should go to Georgetown to study history. So I said, I don't have any history training. So I went to see the dean of School of Foreign Service, Father Joseph Sebes, S-E-B-E-S. And he was a Hungarian. He was born in Budapest. He went to China for 10 years, teach Chinese high school in the countryside.
Okay.
And he said, well, since you're majoring in agriculture, you have to make up 24 credits of a history course. I said, okay, I'll be happy to do it. And so I took some more course at Georgetown, undergraduate course on history. After I finished that, I passed. I got a good grade, and they said, yeah, you are admitted to the regular graduate program for history. Okay. That's why I started my history study in Georgetown.
Okay, this was your master's?
Master's.
Okay.
And after I got my master's in 1965, I continued my PhD. I got my PhD in 1969. After I got my degree, I couldn't believe my luck come again. The chairman of the Department of History, Dr. Thomas Haldy, he was born in China, but he was teaching history of German. And he said, Mr. Wang, I want to offer you a job at Georgetown to teach Chinese history. I said, are you serious? And he called me over the phone at my home. I said, why not? You can come over tomorrow. We have 4 people want to talk to you. Oh, my professor at Georgetown. You see, this kind of thing really, I really have belief. If you get lucky, you cannot stop that luck.
Sure. Very fortuitous turn.
Yeah, you see, I got my degree in June, and I got that offer to teach at Georgetown in later part of June, and I start teaching in September.
So you started at Georgetown, and then you never left?
I never left, yeah. Because I'm still teaching there, even though I retired from Library of Congress, but I'm still teaching part-time at Georgetown. I teach one course.
So what do your courses focus on now?
I teach one course on contemporary China, focus on contemporary China since '49, and also I teach one course on American-China relations and since 1972. And but I really enjoy what we're doing. You working in Library of Congress, you get to know American China scholars. They come to the Library of Congress, do research. You help them find the right resources for them to study and write a book, write their dissertation, and I really enjoy that. And then in the meantime, I was able to get in touch with the academic myself in Georgetown University.
Sure.
So this is a complement each interest I have, and teaching, and also doing research. And through the Library of Congress connection, I met hundreds international scholars studying on China, and I helped them, and many of them become very, very successful American China scholars. And some of my students also become very, very well-known professor of Chinese history in different universities. And this is my kind of unexpected. Before I come to the United States as a high school student, I didn't know what I'm going to get into. And I didn't even think about I'll be a professor or maybe a curator of a Chinese collection. But it happened to me. Sometimes I feel that's what, when I mentioned this to my friends, they say, you have a very interesting life story. I said, maybe I do. So I think that's why they urged me to write something about this. I said, well, I have nothing to write. But I said, well, you do. Once I start to write, every 2 or 3 pages a year, a day, and I cannot stop. So I said that this is what I wanted to finish and get a publisher. At the beginning, you asked me how to think to publish, and after the draft, the manuscript, first version finished, I have a couple of people, 2 people, young people, help me. I don't know how to type them, so they help type them, and I showed to a few so-called publishers literary agent, they're not interested in my book. They said there's no commercial value.
Right.
No, because people wanted to read something written by a famous celebrity.
Sure.
I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a really big, outstanding scholar. I'm just a professor at a university, and then also more than 30 years experience developing Chinese collections. And but I never gave up. I tried different publishers.
Sure.
After more than a year and a half, finally, I found this publisher.
Okay.
I think that this is something that I'm very grateful to the publisher. And it is you can write a book, but you need a publisher to publish it.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting. You said that you're not writing it from the angle of a celebrity. You're not writing about controversial things, but it's still there's still a lot of value, especially for students who are studying abroad or coming to America and hoping to get that education, and to see that experience of coming as a student and then becoming a teacher. I think there's definitely intrinsic value to that as well.
Yeah, I hope that my short memoir would maybe have some interest to the Chinese student coming here since 1979, after Deng Xiaoping visited the United States in 79. And when I first came here, there's only maybe 2,000 or 3,000 Chinese students in the United States. And many of them went back to China, supposed to help China build up their motherland in 1953, 54, 55. And then I was the only one undergraduate stay here. At that time, in Maryland, only about 3 undergraduate students. I was the only one from mainland China. The other 2 American-born, native-born.
That's a huge change from
huge
now.
change.
Now there are so many students.
Right. I would not expect, at that time, it's during the Cold War, and no student from mainland China can come here until Carter normalized diplomatic relations with the PRC. And then you begin to have a small number of Chinese students, mostly older graduate students, maybe professional, maybe teachers at high school, college, come over here to go through an advanced degree in science, primarily. Nobody study social science, humanities here. And that's what, after 2 or 3 years, the students more and more from China come over here. Now, when I come over here, at that time, it's difficult for a Chinese student to make a living here, because you're not supposed to work. You have to get the permission to work. Otherwise, you're going to be deported back to
work visas.
In my case, and they couldn't deport me because they have no place to deport me. They cannot send me back to China. Mainland China, they didn't want me.
Sure.
I couldn't go to Taiwan, so the American government stuck with me. So in 1953 or 54, 53, and the State Department people contacted me. Well, since you cannot go back, you cannot have find work. Maybe we give you some economic aid. So I got $100 a month from the State Department. It's just the generosity of American people.
Right.
And I got a student aid for about a year and a half, and I later on found a summer job in different places, and to earning my own living expenses, and also tuition cheap. At Maryland University, I pay $80 per semester.
That's also changed greatly since then.
And so that I can make a very decent living in the college years, about $80, $100 a month, compared with today.
Sure.
And the Chinese students come here since 1979, 80, and they come here with the Chinese government support.
Sure.
And I started here with my own, tried to work in the summer. I work in the summer in the farms down in western Maryland.
I heard you also opened your own restaurant at some point?
Yeah, I think that's something I would never dream again. 4 or 5 of my friends, they said, why not we open a restaurant? I worked one summer at a country club in New York, Long Island.
Sure.
And I learned how to manage a cocktail lounge.
Okay.
As a bartender assistant. So I was a night manager of a cocktail lounge for a very, very large country club at Great Neck.
Sure.
And I came back in September. I learned how to run a restaurant. And a few friends I said, well, we can open a restaurant in D.C. here. Why don't you look at a spot?
Sure.
I like to eat seafood. I went to a restaurant on Connecticut Avenue at Porter in Connecticut. At that time called Seafair. I go there every Friday night, I have a dinner, and I met the owner of the restaurant,
Okay.
Mr. Fong, F-O-N-G. He was a native-born Chinese American. He said, Mr. Wang, are you interested to buy a restaurant? I said, well, which one do you want to sell? He said, this one here, I want to sell this one. This is a big restaurant,
Sure.
400 seats.
Okay.
I said, how much do you want to sell? He said, I want to sell for $100,000. I said, we don't have any kind of money. And so I went back to see my friends, and he said, that's a restaurant for sale, good location.
Right. So did you all pool money?
Yeah, pool. And then I finally went to see Mr. Fong. I said, can you sell it cheaper? He said, how about $80,000? So I was, okay, that's a deal. We tried to borrow $80,000, get the restaurant open. And the first time we opened, January 1954.
1954.
It was a success.
Okay, that's fantastic.
But I left the restaurant business in 1960.
Okay. This is when you were working at FSI?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
FSI, in the morning, after the evening, I go to restaurants.
Oh,
So,
sounds like a very busy and challenging schedule.
But I have free meal every day.
Right.
But that was an interesting experience.
Of course it was,
Through that restaurant, we met many celebrities from Hollywood, from State Department,
diplomats
embassy.
as well.
Embassy. I kind of coined a kind of a publicity. Say, we serve more diplomats than White House. So that's on our business card. We serve more diplomats than the White House, and even President Eisenhower also ordered takeout orders.
Wow,
from
that's
the restaurant.
fantastic.
And that's a place diplomats from Asian countries, South Korea, Republic of China, and Japan, and other countries. They all go there to eat, entertain their friends, American friends, State Department people, and that's why Sullenberger went to the restaurant. He bumped into me, in 1956, and I had a lot of fun, and I met a lot of people during from 1954 to 1960. But I decided to. Once I got a job at Library of Congress, I got a job in Yaritown.
You certainly have had a very prolific career, and I'm sure that anyone who's interested should definitely read this book and discover all the journeys that you've had. But this is all the time we have for today, and I want to thank you again for joining us.
Well, thank you, Grace.
So that's all the time we have for today. Again, Dr. Chi Wang's book is called A Compelling Journey from Peking to Washington. And I want to thank our audience at home for joining us. We'll see you on the next China Forum.